Hi everyone, I am Hassan Kibirige. Uh, and yes, I do plotnine. And um, yeah, as I was actually really hung up about like what to talk about to especially this kind of crowd uh because if it looked like looking at the code would not show you guys anything new that you really that you haven't seen. And then I thought like, okay, everything like in if I am hung up, like just do the story of how this thing comes across, because it is I'm still surprised that I actually created a package, and more surprised that it became popular. And this is like kind of like um the retelling of like how this thing came about, or more or less the highlights or the things that I consider um pertinent to it coming about. So yeah, here it is. Plot 9, how it came about. Um, okay, how it started. Um, it all starts after we had elections in Uganda. Uh, Now in like 2011 is just a few years after like I think it was 2008 elections in the US, where the whole data thing was front and center, as in there was like a pool, and the presidential candidate at the time or did like a full data analytics like a center where they had a lot of things going on. And even like for us who are not in the United States, we got to experience what it means to look at country and election data. And also we were so invested, like for me, I was so invested in that and then analytics, that when the results came out, I got to look at the breakdowns. I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting uh, that you can do such types of breakdowns with um, with demographics, with voting results and whatnot." So from 2011, we have elections in Uganda, and when the results come out, and the publications, the news media, the civil society organizations do their breakdowns of how we voted, I was like, is this it? Is this the best we can do? But like we already saw like the gold standard, like how it should be done. You can break down elections, you can break down results to like the finest um like voting regions, and build it up and build it up all the way to like to the national level. Examine like what is the difference between things like, okay, this what you call like a county and neighboring counties, like what are we, can you even visualize that? Can you even uh come up with good theories about what you see in the with these fine-grained statistics and insights from like analysis. So like I was hung up. I was like, like we should do better, but like better wasn't there. And when I looked around, our like electoral commission did publish the results, and I was like, okay. So I guess if I want the type of analysis that if I want to get the type of analysis that I'm imagining, I'm going to have to do it myself. So I start figuring out like, okay, how do you even analyze data? First, like you have to choose a programming language. Like that became obvious. And so I looked around like, okay, analyzing election data, analyzing a lot of data. Like, what do you do? So the options came up like whether it either had to be R or Python. So I'm like, which one, which one, which one? Then I come up, okay, I decide, let me be systematic about this. Let me look at R code for a week and look at Python code for a week and then make a decision. So specifically analytical and code doing data analysis. So I looked at R code for a week. I didn't write anything, just looking at code and and trying to understand what it was doing. And then I looked at Python code, and after that I had to make a decision, and that decision was um, based on um, one thing, what I was going to do, but then also my prediction for the near future. So what I was going to do was like analyze things, election data. And I hoped that I would do that, get my insights, and maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, I could get another data set that I would want to look at, and hopefully um, I would be able to regain uh, my previously acquired skill set of like this programming language that I learned to analyze elections. And with that in mind, I wasn't sure. In fact, I was confident that um, after, if I used R, um, I would struggle 3 years down the road to pick it up again, because like I realized R was very powerful. And if I was going to be doing analysis day in, day out, I would choose it, but I wasn't. So I would like obviously choose the thing that you recognize to be powerful. And since you don't since I don't expect to take a break from it, I will always I will build up, and I will always have that skill in my toolbox, rather than reacquainting myself with it down the road. So based on that, like I chose Python. Like, okay, Python looked more friendly. It was and if I had to come back to it 5 years down the road after the like next elections, it would still look familiar. And yeah, so I choose that. I start analyzing things, and then it comes to the plotting things. And it was a horrible experience because, again, because I was doing this on the side, I would um, take a week without working on anything. Then I come back to my code and start plotting again, and start analyzing again. So the code that does the analytics, like the Python, was like easy to come back to, but the plotting code, like the matplotlib, always I could never get rid of the learning anxiety that you always have while learning a new thing with matplotlib. So you're always unsure um about what you're doing. You don't I couldn't get that comfort with the API. And whenever I had to do anything, I always had to go to like the documentation, look at like, oh, how does Matplotlib, how do you do this in Matplotlib? How do you do that? And it is still the case, but it was worse then with the plotting code in Matplotlib, because Matplotlib has two APIs. It has a functional API and it has an object-oriented API. And it wasn't really sure what code, it was hard to tell what API you're looking at, especially at the beginning. And also, given the fact that when you use the object-oriented API, you start out with like calls that look like your that look like the function API. So like it was I took long getting acquainted with it, and I was like, okay, there has to be a better way to plot things. So let me look around, and that's where I discovered ggplot2 and the grammar of graphics. So I look around. I don't remember exactly when I first recognized ggplot2, but it was probably code. And I'm surprised. And up to now, I think about like, how come I probably wasn't looking out for it, but um, in my initial survey of like R and Python, I wasn't specifically looking at visualization. So didn't, I may have looked at ggplot2 code, but I, I didn't remember. So, but anyways, this time I'm like looking out for like plotting libraries. I look, a way to plot things anywhere. So I'm like, okay, if I get my data in Python, I can take it anywhere um and um and plot and plot it. Then I looked the first the first library I came across was gnuplot. Now gnuplot is a very interesting library, very old. In like I think whose first version came out in like 1984 or 85 or around there. And it is but it is not friendly to interact with because it has it's kind of its own language. So you can write a script that just has the plotting code, and or you can plot in the GNU plot repo. And it is you it is not something that uh, that is conducive to an analytics workflow whereby, okay, I'm doing my analysis now, let me drop in plot and then let me continue with something else. It's like I found the whole interaction very odd, but it had um one great feature that uh it was very fast, and it still is very fast. So it's like, huh. Um, but anyways, that I pushed that aside, and then I discovered like ggplot2. I come across ggplot2 code, and I'm like, wow, this I can understand this without even reading anything. But let me go read about it, and that's where I go to like a layered grammar by graphics by Hadley. Now this paper was very like eye-opening. Now this I sometimes even get like uh goosebumps like when I think about I think about that moment when I make the connection about like what is actually happening and what I associate the grammar of graphics with at the time as like, wow, this is like it was like the most elegant idea I had like come across, and it was like right there. And I related it to something, and that something is this like the ghost of like Maxwell's equations, and I call it the ghost of Maxwell's equations for a reason now. Now my background is in physics, and when you're studying physics, you like electromagnetism, you come across these e equations called like Maxwell's equations, which unite um which unite magnetism and electricity or light. So, but anyway, here they are. But they are very entangled with each other, and you can't get any intuition about them. Uh, the concept is like the unification thing is very elegant, but like there is no intuition. It is hard to get intuition like when you're like, especially when you're like involved in the during the course, doing the coursework and the whole like um and in the whole process, like afterwards I've seen people who claim like, yes, you can think about them this way and that way, but I never really got any kind of intuition, I I always had them at the back of I, like at the back of my head. I always think about them like, huh, this very elegant unification of like of things, but you just can't understand how it happens. As in, you look at the equations, like you can learn how to manipulate them to get the right answers. but you couldn't I couldn't get any kind of intuition. So I was like, So when I read the Hadley's a layered grammar of graphics, I was like, ah, this is, if you squint, this is a unification kind of thing where it unifies visualizations. And there has to be a way, there has to be something in how you accomplish that, but it wasn't in the paper, a layered grammar, but it is somewhere. And if it is going to be somewhere, it has to be where like the source of like this whole concept, like the layered grammar of graphics by Leland Wilkinson. So I'm like, okay, I am looking for like the set of moves that does the unification, and since this is code and not not like multi-dimensional like calculus, I'm sure I'll be able to understand and get some intuition about this um this thing that looks like it is also a form of unification. And so when I pick up the book, the grammar of graphics, I'm specifically like looking for one thing. Like I know it has to be there. Like like what is the equivalent of Maxwell's equations to the theory of uh uh electromagnetism. And it has to be laid down in some kind of states, in some kind of like um flowchart, in some kind of like something. And so I start reading it, and lo and behold, like I come across like in chapter 2, I come across like the thing I wanted, I envisioned was there. And and banishing like the ghost of me not understanding, um not having an intuition about the things I tend to fall in love with, which are like um unification like theories and whatnot. And here it was like, okay, now like this is it. So the fact that I came across it like in chapter 2 before like the book got into the nitty-gritty like helped me like figure out like go through all of it. And definitely appreciate, first of all, I understood it, and that was like, ooh, and appreciate it. But while I was reading it, I was like, okay, something is odd. Like, how do you turn this? It is not so obvious when you're reading this. First of all, like, it's not so obvious that the system that is being described in the book is um, does not exist. So there is no implementation, because it always looks like the examples and the snippets always look like, there's probably some kind of implementation, because there's pseudocode that and graphics. So but 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 reading through like your and from other sources, like it was all just like a well written book, a well written book with the right graphics created somehow to show the concepts and the working of the system. And after that, I think about like, okay, if I am reading this thing for the first time, how would I interpret it and create um, a functional system, like a code, like a package? And I discovered that having read uh, Hadley's like the layered grammar, like my mind was poisoned. Like there is absolutely no way you can come to this thing with a with a fresh mind, and 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 think creatively about it after having read the layered grammar. Like there's no way. But I wanted to. But then as I looked around, I saw like, oh, this Hadley guy did it for his PhD. I'm like, like I would have to do a PhD just to, like, first of all, my mind is already poisoned. And second, um, uh, that aside, just to interpret this whole book to maybe see if there's another take on it, I would have to do a PhD. I'm like, I don't think I'm cut out for, like, I'm not cut out for that. So I'm like, okay. Anyways, I don't even have the confidence. I'm like, okay, but this is a very revolutionary, like, idea, and it is going to come to Python, which I now use. It's only a matter of time. Like, someone more capable than I am is going to, like, implement this thing, a gram of graphics in Python, and when it happens, ooh, I'll be there to use it. So, anyways, I waited, like, for that someone to do it. And it was only 2 years later that they came up, and that this package came up, called it was called ggplot for Python. And I was like, okay, hmm, it's finally here. Um, and when I start using it, something is odd. It doesn't have the mileage that I expected of it. So you 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 make the basic plot, you um uh you try to add a scale, and something breaks. You try to do you try to do you try to plot something in a very grammar of graphics way, and it breaks. So so the initial code, that, like, the simple plots look like it is a grammar of graphics, but when you try to do the more complicated things, or even not more complicated, like the well try to go beyond the basics, it wasn't it. So, like, okay, let me look at this, let me look at the code, like, what is happening. I open it up, and I'm horrified that I could not identify the implementation of, like, that feed that like that um uh, uh, of that pipeline. Like, it was nowhere. I was like, this is like just wrapping ggplot2 syntax on top of matplotlib. It's a facade. It's like, so, like, 2 years and nothing still. But anyways, it is there. It is open source. So I'm like, okay, let me start. I at least okay. Um, I can contribute to this, and maybe, yeah, and maybe after some time it will be a grab of graphics, hopefully. So um I start contributing, and then um I make a bunch of PRs, and after some time the easy, like, PRs are done, and I'm faced with, like, okay, now I have to do that. I have to bring in that whole processing pipeline, uh, and and uh, and implement it in there. That's when I created a PR. This was it. I just did. I think at first, the original name was, like, proper scales, um, which was to get the graphics in. So, um, no, proper scales was the issue where I was discussing this with another contributor who was very interested in improving ggplot for Python. Now, so it so happened that just doing this, I had to uh, start from scratch, but within the scaffolding of the package. Now, so and if we look at the commits, it's like it starts with an initial commit, because it's more or less like starting from scratch. So I slowly, like, work my way through this whole thing. And during the discussions, Jan Kattins, he's a German guy. He was helpful while we are discussing about the limitations, what we needed to do to get this. And I was like, okay, I'm up for this. I'm up for this task now. And he went on to fix something in pandas that was missing, and somewhere like his path like did that and never came back here, but like very helpful, because what he did in pandas was write the specification for how pandas should do categorical variables, because up to that point pandas did not have categorical variables, and we needed them. So like it was very helpful, because when I got to that point where like um my implementation needed to start making use of like the categorical variables, and for all the features that rely on them, all the workflow that relies on them, they were there. And yeah, very, very helpful. Um, and but this took me a long time. So this PR was open for a long time, and all that was happening during this time was just me working in the open, albeit slowly. And at some point, the owner of the repo, who was this Greg, got impatient. I think it was like, oh, like just fix what you have and we merge it in. But I felt very uncomfortable. I felt because there was so many things um, weren't working well, although folks were using my branch. Um, I didn't want to put out a package whereby people got the same impression that I got when I used it. I did want to ship it so that people got the same impression that I got when I used this package, that it does not have the mileage. So that was important to me. And with this and with this push to get me to co to to merge it, um, while I wasn't ready, I thought about it, and I was like, okay, here this is the first time that that the author of the package is engaging on this issue, and this was after about a year, and I don't think they are really invested into the grammar of graphics. And if that is the case, I don't think the work that I'm doing will be best managed by them. And this is the point where I came to the realization that I am the best manager for this grammar of graphics implementation. Like I will because I cared more about it than the package author. And this is where dead dead or a few days afterwards is when I decided that this will be a separate package, and this is when you could say plotnine was born. Because after this it was I was convinced this peer will not get merged, and I will create a package. Now, up to this point, I never thought of myself as being a package creator. Um, but yeah, he was. Good shout out uh, to this guy who I currently work with, Michael Chow, who came in to first interaction with him. I didn't know that I would get to work with him years later, but he came in and offered some support, and I was like, oh, okay, people are really interested in what I'm doing. I just have to keep up. I just have to keep up with it. So,
I think Michael's on the call, by the way.
oh, he is? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good
shout
to
out to Mike.
And
we
in the
go
comments.
way back, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, the big fan came out here, and yeah, and this meant and this meant a lot to me, because creating creating a package is not something I had seen someone do, except people on the except people on the internet. Even choosing to use Python is like here in Uganda, like I was the first person, I am the first person I know of that used Python, that started programming in Python. Like till to this day, I haven't met someone who started using Python earlier than 2011. But creating a package was like a whole like different thing. It's like can you really can you even do that? Are you even allowed to do that? I didn't think I was allowed. I didn't think I was allowed to do that. But suddenly when I started making PRs, uh, and I gained slowly gained the confidence and got to this point, I was like, okay, I have to create a package. And later on, that package became um, uh, plotnine. So
And I just wanted
that
to let
is,
you know that we're coming up on like just having
yes,
20 minutes for discussion. I just want to
yes.
make you aware. I don't want to cut into too much the discussion time, but you can use as much time as you want.
Okay. Okay, so that is how plotnine um is born. Um, but while I was doing that, I was also thinking about like, oh, this data science thing. What is data science like, anyways? Because when I started, there was data. I don't remember the word data science being around, but within a year, like data science was everywhere. It's like, oh, what the hell is this thing? And I wasn't too happy with I wasn't too content with the explanations of like why call it data science and not data analytics. Either way, anyways, I won't go into those details, but while I was still doing that, um, uh, I, uh, I obviously was going back to the Hadley's paper, and there was this part in there with R. We also gain a wide range of prepackaged statistics useful for graphics, loess smoothing, quantile regression, density estimation, and a blah blah blah. And this like loess smoothing caught my mind. I was like, I know what these things, the rest of the things are. I don't know what loess is. And because I was like trying to figure out where this whole data science thing, um, um, why this whole data science thing happened. Um, I was uh, I was looking at Google, like the frequency of the term data science in the in the Google like book corpus, and this is what it looks like far like from 1800 to like this was like about 2014. So you cut off like the data that really matters is 1960 onwards. But then we realized that beyond 2000, like about 11, it is like you have this exponential, so it is blowing off our scale. So let's chop it off over there. And this is between 1960 to 2012. So this is what it looks. So this is what it looks like. I'm like, okay. Let me apply a loess to this thing. So I apply a loess, and I get that thing. I'm like, okay, that is that. I'm like, this looks familiar. And what it is uh, I had just discovered the the trend of like AI winters. So I had seen a graph somewhere. Um, this is the graph of like the hype, the AI hype. throughout the years, the hype, and then it dies down because it's not fruitful, and then it is back, and then it is back up, and that is what that data had given me. So all these graphs everywhere else are just about what it felt like during the time. None of them is data backed. So I had that. I was like, oh, okay, this is it. Layout. Um, so this is loess. But then it had these two other features here, and then I looked at them. I'm like, oh, okay, something interesting. So we have the winters. These are the two winters, and then we have here the dot-com crash and the stock market crash of like 2008. I was like, wow, lowest is cool. I need to be able to use it in Python as well. Where is it in Python? So I go hunting around like for lowest in Python, and it turns out like all lowest smoothing, all lowest implementations come from they are written by like one person or one team, and the original implementation is on this website, which you can think of like as the GitHub for like computation algorithms before GitHub. So I went there, but it had been it had been it had been there had been an attempt to get the lowest code into SciPy, but it had failed because it is very complicated, and it had been about 5 years since that attempt. So I was like, look, I have to work on this to bring out this lowest thing in Python as well. So I will skip over why it is complicated, but it's because of all those things are involved, and it also took me about 2 years to get it to work, and finally we had loess um, in Python. Yeah, so we get to look at code. I guess this is the yeah. So this is the plotnine code that implements that final lowest graphic, and it just so happens that by the time I was ready to release plotnine, loess, the package scikit mix that I created that does that grabs that code, shapes it up, and makes it ready for Python was up. And yeah, so this is the lowest code smoothing. And now we get to the discussion part, like what is different, like what makes like in plotnine and in Python and ggplot2. The differences are those are enforced by the language. Like R has non-standard evaluation, so you can do things without um, you can assume that variables will exist in some context, like within a function while you are using them in a parameter, and all those like very powerful, but it is not there in Python. So when we want to do the things that require non-standard that when we want to evaluate code later, we have to quote it in strings. So that is one of the differences. Now, another is not a difference that appears on the to the user on the user API, but it is something that affects the features of the package, and that is Python does not have a grid. Now, grid in R is the package that bridges the gap between the graphic devices, the packages that write your image files or PDF or whatnot, and the plotting package. So it gives it gives you guys a good foundation on which to write a plotting package. For plotnine, I rely on matplotlib. Matplotlib doesn't have that separation, so it is always a fight to get to do things that are not clearly separated within the package I'm relying on. that has been the biggest struggle while writing and maintaining plotnine and evolving the features. Luckily, I've since I joined Posit, I've been able to make headway, and the next version has something that I thought would never happen, and that is plot composition, that aka patchwork. It has been a long time, and it and and this is the kind of feature where mm, a library that gives you good independent blocks to work with, or code to work with, is or concepts to work with, is very helpful. And and I've been able to I've been able to fight my way towards like making this possible without uh, hopefully without the edge cases. Now some features um will be uh will be hard, because it is still a hassle. But this is the next this is coming up hopefully within a month, and this is what it 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 looks like. So without without it is made possible by like a good layout manager, uh, and that came last year. And the layout manager basically like arranging the plots and then also managing all the space that is around the panels. So this is coming out hopefully in about a month. And yeah, this is it. So yeah, any questions, discussions? Okay, we have some time.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Thank you so much for presenting to us and giving us the backstory. Yeah, anybody that has a question for Hassan, please feel free to jump in. I really enjoyed the story about yeah, like kind of the geom smooth story and loess. It's interesting, like how much work went into like getting to parity just on that geom. Um, yeah, you if folks want to raise their hand. Michael, do you remember that contribution? I'm just curious.
Do you mean the PR?
Yeah.
Like our interaction? Is that what you're?
Yes, the 10 years ago interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I was a grad student, and so I was like itching to use plotnine, and I think that I did one like in it. I think there's like one comment in 2015, and then like a year later another one. I think like in 2015 I was curious. In 2016 I was kind of like desperate for Hassan's PR. So it looms pretty large because it was, as I recall, as a grad student, super hard to plot otherwise. So I was just like riding on this PR for a year, basically.
And you didn't like move over to R and ggplot2 because you have some like R like background or
Yeah. I think I was doing quite a bit of R. So I think like I was kind of like taking for granted that I could use R and ggplot, but I think I was sort of like I was doing psychology and neuroscience, and in psychology I was doing all R. In neuroscience I was doing all Python. So it was like I would have like a good time in psychology and a bad time in neuroscience plotting. So I was trying to kind of have the best of both worlds.
Livy has a question.
Hey, yeah. Let me put my hand back down. Hassan, I was wondering, was it frustrating when you were trying to like mimic the functionalities of like theme and other things where in R it's got some of the argument names have a dot in them and you can't do that in Python. You have to have an underscore instead. Like were some of those differences frustrating? I feel like I'm sort of hitting that as well with some things that I'm looking at moving to Python.
Those the language enforced differences were not frustrating because it's the language. It's not possible. But the things that are possible, but just that are possible within the language, but you do not have, say, the the right building blocks of to implement. Yeah, those are those are kind of like frustrating and truth be told, I enjoyed doing some of the things that say ggplot2 plugs from R, but that I have to implement because they are not in Python. Like I found that interesting because during this time, um, I also found out that I loved to program, and yeah, so
Kind of like a nice puzzle, right?
yeah.
Troubleshooting is sometimes my favorite part of teaching. Thanks, Hassan.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, Twin.
yeah.
Hi, Hassan. Thanks for your talk. It was great to hear the story in full. Uh, so in our interactions, we've vented about frustrations with Python every once in a while. But are there any aspects of Python that you can bring to plotnine that don't exist in R? Like, is there a way to take advantage of Python stuff in the grammar?
Uh, good and tough question because that um I'll say I'll say no because for a language, Python does not um um Python is less dynamic of a language than R. So you can do more things with R because it is better at like morphing itself into a DSL, a domain-specific language, than Python is. So if you think if I think about, say, oh, I do something here. So I opened up my terminal in case there is code. For example, when I started when I first looked at the plot at the analytics code, like the Magritte function was not there, but a few years later it was there, and it was like, wow, this is like it makes the processing pipelines more transparent and easier to understand. And I tried to implement something like that using Python, a package, and but that is only at the margin. So you can use this this operator to like uh set the plot, set the data in a plot, just like uh you would do in R. But beyond that, Python doesn't offer anything else as a language to give you that creativity.
Okay, thanks, Hassan.
Yes, Jan, who is it?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the great talk. So I would be interested in are there cases where you deviated from the ggplot2 implementation? So, and then if you did, what were the reasons? So was it because of practical reasons, because the implementation in Python was just different, or maybe you even discovered cases where you think, okay, this should be done differently than ggplot? Can you recall such decisions?
Yes. One of them was a decision I made was there the few was the breaks when Carl when showing breaks for scales with non-linear transforms. I wanted to be able to say like, okay, if the space is nonlinear, I should be able to look at the grid to show that that it is nonlinear. So, for example, if this is a graph. If I change something like say I say scale y log 10. So these breaks should be non-linear. So yeah, they shouldn't be equally spaced, because when you see a log scale, like you kind of expect this pattern. That is one I remember. Another one came to do with something that I still think about undoing up to this point. At this point is somewhere I merge. So for geom point, I merge the um, uh, reference between if someone refers to say color, I take that to be fill. So and no one has ever called the package out on it, but there's a slight quirk somewhere that I think about, like, okay, the quirk is that the points still have like a stroke around them, so that throws off the sizes of, say, the point. If you give a point say a size 1 and a line of size 1, you have to undo the stroke around the point, because to get them to have the same size, but that means that is a consequence because of like me saying like, okay, for points, if someone doesn't specify a color, a field, the field becomes the color. All the others are like enforced by the language. At some point, I realized that it is a helpful working mantra was not to disappoint ggplot2 users. So like whenever I have a choice to make, I would say like, okay, does this disappoint or does this surprise ggplot2 users? If it doesn't, then I can do something different. But there haven't been that many places where I think of like a relevant difference and that deviates from ggplot2. Okay, I hope that is helpful. Yes, Corey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's plan on we're coming up on the hour. Let's plan on doing a little bit more formal discussion, maybe 7 or 8 minutes, and then we can go. We'll stop recording and then just chat for a little bit more. Okay, and if anybody needs to go, obviously, yeah, we've loved having you, and then please keep an eye out for our next meeting with Thomas.
All right. Thanks, Hassan. This was really cool to see. I'm not a Python user, so my questions might be a little off base. I'm wondering, first, what is the potential for user extensibility? I mean, this is the ggplot2 extenders group, right? So, to what extent would plotnine users be able to extend the system with their own stats or scales or some such? And looking at, you mentioned earlier that the R language is really has a lot of functionality with delay and with interaction, which Python does not. Other languages, I assume, typically don't. So I wonder if your development of plotnine carries lessons for extending grammar of graphics type visualizations to other languages as well.
Yeah, good question. I've always been thinking about the extensibility, and part of that initially, for example, I thought that the the feature that I'm integrating within plotnine, like plot composition, would be an extension, just the way patchwork is an extension. But because uh, my best, which is Matplotlib, does not allow me to delineate those tasks. Like it has, like I found no way to I have so far found no way to, do it separate away from plotnine as an extension. But users can certainly create their own geoms. They can create their own their stats, their positions, their coordinate systems. The things that they would struggle with is again things that have to do with geoms are with drawings around the main panel. So a few months ago, Tuen had a talk where he did like crazy things with legends and whatnot. Those would be very hard, but they are much easier. They are much easier in R. Most other things are like are within the panel. Like it's fair game. A lot can happen. Okay. Yes, James.
Thank you. Very interesting talk, by the way. And I know I'm new here, so be easy on me. I primarily develop in R, but I guess my general question is, are there examples where people have developed a custom geom, for example, in R and also done the same thing in Python for plotnine? I did a quick search. I see a couple examples where things are similar, but I didn't know if that's a model that you thought about. Like if somebody comes up with a new geom and they want to release to both.
No, and no one has done that. But I did it. At some point there was at some point someone before plotnine was, I think it was either before it was out or just after it was out, someone wanted to submit a geom called geom Sina to ggplot. And the full I think the whole review happened on like the ggplot2 repo, but it wasn't the best place for it, so it went into one of Thomas's packages. I think, was it ggforce or something like that. But because I like density like things and smoothing things, I was like, this has to be in plotnine. So this is in plotnine, although in R it is in an extension.
Nice. I like geom Sina.
We have maybe time for one or two more comments and questions, and then we could go offline. I'll stop recording. Nicola, I asked her if she would speak to the not disappointing ggplot2 users when coming to plotnine. I don't know are you able to have one, Nicola?
Yeah. So
as somebody that has won competitions in plotnine.
Yeah. I think initially, like, I didn't have any other experience with Python, so I think that, you're kind of trying to learn two things at once, which is always harder than just trying to learn one thing at once. But I feel like it's definitely gotten smoother over time. I guess if I kind of had a question of like why, like, so there's some things I don't like about ggplot2. So things like the sort of default styling and stuff like that, I have always sort of wished that was different. So I wondered whether like you thought about, not just disappointing ggplot2 users, but sort of trying to improve upon ggplot2 and kind of make some of the defaults better?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. First of all, I'll go back to the other quick question about extensions. Based on your submission to the plotnine contest, like one extension that I'm definitely going to create is the equivalent of, say, ggtext or Marquee, that allows you to do so. Like I saw that and I cringed at you having to like fall back into Matplotlib, because it was like, yeah, it was inelegant. You had to like manually position things and whatnot. I was like, okay, he is someone who has like good taste in like the type of graphic and whatnot, and they shouldn't have to like they shouldn't have to go through this. So I felt your pain there, and it is something I've set myself to do this year. Like, yes, I have to work on that, to the best of my ability, so that other users can benefit from that. Yeah, about the defaults. I struggle with that. But I have certainly thought about creating another package with better defaults, especially aimed at scientific publications, that and they wouldn't really be defaults, but they would be like separate themes or separate scales, and and in there is something that makes extending plotnine even harder again, in that it is hard to change the defaults of, say, the geometries, the styles, and the stuff that we're within of the geoms from the outside. I would love to do that. I would love to do that in an extension such that someone can easily do that. Say one line of code and changes all the defaults. But in Python, that is hard. If I were going to change the defaults, that's how I want to do it, by creating a very minimally invasive way to insert one line of code, and it changes the defaults. But not something that is like default there, but just say, hey, like say default to like, cool style, and like whatever cool style is becomes the default. But I still struggle. How do I create it, given the limitations of given how the package is implemented and the limitations and the Python limitations. Yeah. Yeah, I hope like that is helpful.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think maybe we could wrap up here.